Welcome to Class Clowns. That's the name of the podcast, Class Clowns.
It is.
It is.
As I'm part of it now.
I guess.
I've
if
been
you
on
can
like,
use
I've
correct
been on
English,
like
you can't be an educated podcast.
Somebody gotta be.
Is I'm a part.
Right. As I'm part of it, I'm trying.
We trying to sound like slaves.
I'm trying to be one of the. All right, but y'all gonna circumvent that. And you like that word.
I don't know. I don't think you know what that means. I think
something to do with the airflow. Is that thing in the car, the one that's like a circle? That's what I meant. I was circumventing.
Well, look, today's guest is Sharif El-Mekki. I'm here in Philadelphia, and I don't appreciate it. This town, I don't like Philly. No, I'm playing.
I like it. It's
weird. You walk by the old heads out there, they may have heard you.
Right. They like they came out these little gingerbread houses.
It's a gang of
like a gingerbread house.
Philadelphia. It's a gang of old black Muslim men.
Everywhere.
It's like Bill O'Reilly's worst nightmare. They out there talking shit about the Olympics. That is literally what's right outside this door.
Feel protected somehow though, don't you?
I do. I feel like nothing could go down.
Not from white people.
Like these are the dudes that were
Right
supposed to be watching Malcolm that day, but
they got caught slipping.
One of them took off.
They never been off duty since.
Yeah, shit went wrong.
They still been watching. All right,
they watching our back. I know. Now I'm sad.
All right, it's not.
But that's why some of the later folks were like, because Malcolm was like, "Hey, I'm with the people. I don't want them to feel uncomfortable." And then later, folks are like, "No, we searching everybody.
Right,
I don't
right,
care.
right.
I don't care who you are. Like, we ain't."
Yeah, you should have.
Friend or foe, either way. Gotta get into it. But look,
yeah, Sharif, I don't know about you at all, man. I'm really.
Yeah, well, I'm glad.
He didn't really brief me. I came here to do some jokes later on at the show.
Okay.
But I've been on the show before and it's really dope. And I know he's talking to people who know stuff and then went to school and all that.
Mark's trying to sound dumber than he is. He ain't this thing.
No, really.
Comedic,
I know. I mean,
personality.
Of course I'm exaggerating, but at the same time, I'm sure
I know you read a lot of books, so
right. I would mostly thinking you could shoot me a book if you have any books with you. But I don't know. I don't know your story. Like, what do you do?
First of all, just glad y'all made it up to Philly. Ever since it was a year ago, we met in DC at a summit for the teaching leadership in the teaching profession. And so he said, like, hey, when I'm in Philly, I'm going to get in touch with you. So we've been like, I'm like, hey, this event's coming. He's like, nah, I can't. My kids got this. So when he's sent out, said, like, hey, I'll be in Philly. I was happy to jump on board.
So you teach in a charter school?
I'm a principal at a local charter school, not too far from here.
I feel so honored talking to a principal like it's grown.
Usually you be in trouble. Right.
You
bring back memories. You're like,
no, you go to the office now. That's crazy.
It's almost confession time.
Right. You bring me back. So you're a principal from a charter school?
What's the name of the school?
Shoemaker. It's under the Master Charter Network, Master Charter Shoemaker Campus, West Philly. It's 7 minutes from here, if that.
What's the neighborhood like?
Neighborhood it's an older neighborhood. It's black community. It's oppressed. Not a lot of resources. We serve.
I don't think that's in the.
You're back in the. Y'all not old enough.
This area is oppressed.
Yeah, y'all not old enough. Yeah, they skip over it. Like, well, that part is gentrified. So it's coming up.
Right.
Like right now, where we are now, this is a gentrified neighborhood.
Yeah. The same things happen.
Yeah. So what this used to look like, it looks nothing like.
I was just
they
talking.
even changed the name. Now this is Brewery Town.
Yeah, I saw it on my
Brewery Town. I'm like, when people were saying it, I didn't even know where they were talking. I'm like, where is that?
He's like,
they're like right off of Girard Avenue. I was like, what? Like that's a town now. Like so you can see when you go out, you'll see all this is new. These are all yeah. So
it's coming up. It's coming.
It's like
DC,
but
almost.
Are we still in a place where they're clashing? Where there's still a lot of people that were there before? Still intermingling?
Not in this immediate area. It was a lot of like pressure on folks who had homes to sell, and a lot of them did. So it's hard to find now because you'll see this like blocks and blocks and blocks of these newly constructed homes. Where it's not like where it was an attempt to integrate communities and take the abandoned communities and all right, here, folks move in. It was like, let's just, this is an interesting part of the city because this is also part of the Promise Zone. Is that what it's called? Promise Zone, where the federal government gives all this money to infuse into communities. So it'll be interesting to see like what that actually turns into.
Really? Yeah. That's interesting, and that's what the felt to get it more like this.
Well, it happened after this, but
it's a process.
But look who's here.
Mm-hmm. And it's always just been really interesting to me because the Philadelphia Zoo is like right smack dab.
Right, I saw that one.
And so many folks couldn't afford to go. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like the regular prices, there are a lot of poor folks in the city, in this neighborhood who couldn't go there. So, I'm sure there are certain programs, hey, come in free and all that. But in general, the cost is cost prohibitive for a lot of black families to go, even though it's smack dab in the middle of their neighborhood.
Your city and neighborhood. That's a damn shame. What does it cost like to go to the zoo?
What's it cost? That's not what this podcast about.
Because I'm living the struggle. I'm talking from the other side of the fence. Y'all trying to help. Listen. Well, I want to go to the zoo. I got kids. I want to take. I just saw the zoo. I want to take my kids to that zoo. I want to know if it's outside of my socioeconomic background.
Let's get into your background.
Playing for $25 a person now around
right.
it. I would take his. I would imagine. I don't know.
I don't know what I do. I'm going to Astro World or something like that.
To be out loose, like dogs and cats.
Anyway, I was just curious. Whatever. Just get an idea,
But but not too far. My dad and both my parents grew up in the Mantua neighborhood. What Philly calls the Black Bottom. We call it the Bottom, but it was the Black Bottom, the neighborhood, and both my parents grew up in different parts of the Bottom. So, and now, as I said, this is my 24th year working in a school, shoemaker school, and I've been at this particular school. I just finished my 8th year, and it's been good watching the kids from 7 to 12 is like you get them when they're still middle school looking around like where's the bathroom, and to seniors saying like, all right, I'm going to USC, see you later, that kind of thing.
That's a very real transition.
We're a neighborhood school, so we're still a lot of siblings, a lot of family members, a lot of neighbors of alum.
Does that help when applying for that school? Because this is a charter school, imagine.
It's a charter, but
your kid can't go.
Yeah,
your kid can't go.
Look, come on, man. We don't even live here. I'm wondering
from Baltimore.
I'm wondering.
Mark just gonna show up.
If the kid's brother went, does that
too young?
Does that help his little brother go?
Well, actually, in a way, it does. So we're a neighborhood school, so we're not like a typical standalone charter where you have to go through a lottery to get into the original seat. If you our charter is written in the 2 feeder schools, like the feeder pattern school, that existed before it became a charter. It's a turnaround school too. So it used to be the second most dangerous school in the city.
It's always funny to hear those like education words.
Oh yeah.
Right, which I kind of get because it's a
turnaround. So it's like,
but I don't
like this violent school, 3 school police officers, just a middle school,
and there was
bars on the windows.
Every city got their own little term.
Yeah, exactly. So like, hey, turn this around.
Completely. It's now
not going to close the building, but let's do a 180 on the achievement levels of kids and the safety of the kids.
Rate looking like?
That's 100%.
I love that Mark is trying.
Graduation.
I'm
rate,
serious.
100%.
Wait a minute. I want
college
to
acceptance rate.
100.
100.
Right. You let that shit slide right by.
Yeah, I know. I was about to talk about you. Like, why are you asking about graduation rate? You talking about this? I'm excited you brought it up.
I'm trying to
help.
It was good. I'm trying to help.
It was good.
Yeah, post-second.
100%
of our students graduate.
Now, how do we know you?
A lot of people get kicked out.
That's what I was about to say. That's what I was about to say. It's not one of those 100% where, hey, 80% of y'all were acting up, so now y'all go out. So this 10% now, y'all are the only ones here. Nah, our retention rate, students who stay year to year to year, is at 94-95% every single year. And the students who do leave tend to be because they've moved really far. The vast majority of our students stay with us from early, and that's what I mean by having that. So our system of how do you get in? If you went to a feeder, the 2 local elementary schools, you don't go through a lottery. You have seats if you want them. If you don't want them,
right. So it's like a neighborhood school.
Exactly, it's your neighborhood school. Okay. So, boom, you go there. In Pennsylvania, by charter, we can't just go take their pockets like a traditional feeder pattern would be, where you opt out. But you just sign a paper, say yes, you have permission to get my child's information. So they'll come there. After that, siblings are the preferred student, and then after any seats left over, after the neighborhood kids and siblings, then it's lottery. And so the lottery seats are usually very limited because our students tend to stay. But yeah, 100%, and this is our 7th graduating class. 2017 will be our 7th graduating class.
And what's the curriculum like? Like, do they get? I mean, we talking. Particularly, I'm thinking about arts. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Why are you laughing at? I'm a comedian.
You're a comedian.
First, I used to be a visual artist.
So comedian.
Why are you laughing? You've never seen me talk
like comedic. So what is that? Like comedic art, or is it comedy verbal art? Like what? It is theater. Art, definitely theater.
Comedy definitely theater.
Yeah.
Because you got to be creative with words and gestures and body language.
Yeah, there's a skill to it altogether. But I'm just wondering.
See, I've never been funny. I just like
I mean, you're funny now.
No, you're funny.
We're having fun. You're funny. But I'm just wondering. I wonder.
Don't say you're not funny.
I went to.
You're funny.
Believe in yourself, man.
I believe in you. Go ahead, baby.
Right. Growth mindset.
Class clowns, man.
Growth mindset. One day.
Man.
I forgot what I was even talking.
But yeah, I was just saying 7th graduating class.
Like
the curriculum.
What I was asking is, have you noticed?
Listen,
because I wonder.
Our kids don't have time for art. They just got to read 6 hours a day. All right,
I'm wondering if to me, I think here, in my humble opinion, I think that in our education system, I think a lot of things are left out. I think a lot of things that may be crucial to your life and you seeing the world differently are left out. One of those things are art and music and shit like that. I never got those classes in school. I kind of, discovered certain things on my own. I also feel like, what about practical information and how to balance your checkbook and all that type of stuff that gets left out? Come on, you know what I mean? I'm 1,000 years old. How to handle your money? This is what happens. You understand what I'm saying? How do you miss out on? How do you handle your money?
When you Where's the ledger?
Listen,
bring the ledger.
I'm trying to help them out.
Where's the abacus?
Listen, I'm trying. You said abacus? Because let me tell you something. I remember in kindergarten we had an abacus.
I remember that too.
Right, we used to have an instrument called ridge sticks. You know what them is?
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's just a stick with little ridges on it. you just
rub them.
You rub them together with it. That's the sound.
Was that in music class?
That was my last music class. I was in like the first grade.
Well, let me say.
What I'm just saying, I've different things other than just
So as a student myself, outside of elementary school, I never took a music class. Mm-hmm. Outside of elementary, I never took an art class.
Mm-hmm. Wait. Let's back it up. Where are you from?
I'm from Philly.
You're
West
from
Philly. West Philadelphia.
Right.
Born in West is best.
Is there more cool?
Right. You gotta lay the music.
I was thinking it, but I was like, no one's funny enough to say it. You said that shit. We drove in here. You was like, is this West Philadelphia? And West Philadelphia. I was like, no, don't do it again.
I graduated from the Overbrook High School.
What elementary school did you go to?
Elementary school, actually, I went to a freedom school.
Okay,
so
what's that?
A freedom school is basically a school that was rooted in the idea that black students were not getting what they needed in traditional public schools. And if you study like the civil rights movement, it was a lot of freedom schools were started in the South.
Wait, what?
There were a lot of freedom schools in the South.
Okay.
And our school was started by former Black Panther members and former other activists, and they said, you know what, we need a school that's going to be revolutionary in this concept, that will teach students how to not only perform academically, but will also, carry on the struggle and carry on the baton of black liberation. And so that's what our elementary school was rooted in.
This is elementary school.
Elementary.
That's heavy.
That's how it should be.
It's how. I don't know. I feel like coloring.
Well, we were
coloring.
Just. It was so. Coloring, we colored.
Not realizing that you are colored.
You gotta know what's going on.
Yeah, no, our elementary school was revolutionary, and it was now I hear like, like people are saying like it's too rigid or too militant or it's no excellence. That's not good for. And our school, and I tweeted the other day, I was like, the school I went to demanded black excellence. They said, don't bring any excuses in here. Don't, and so it's interesting because in the black community, we are always like, don't make an excuse. Yeah, we're dirt poor. Yeah, we're oppressed. we have nothing.
Now go out there and kick ass.
And you better go read.
You know, like that's what
exactly. But now it's a little bit high. But it's different when it's the black community saying that to each other. Yeah. It's a lot different when a wealthy white person comes in and tries to impose that same, kind of hijack that same mantra and say, hey, well, I heard there's no excuses for y'all, so no excuses, and that empathy of, because for us, our family was like, there's no excuses. Yeah, you're hungry, eat this, get to work. Where it kind of became hijacked and like, no excuse, you're hungry, push through, show grit, and that's the difference where slipping a sandwich and say, now read this, don't drop too many tears on this page, you're gonna blur it, but keep working. And I think that's part of like this whole dynamic that we're existing now. But our school, my friend he sent us a message to one of our songs.
I'm sorry, do you run that dancing school?
Do I run the dancing school? No, I don't run the dancing school.
From Fame, nigga.
No, this is school people was dancing on.
It's not Fame or Glee.
But we did. So the interesting part about our school, we didn't have gym. We had gym like the first year, like when I was in first grade. After that, one of the teachers who was hired is like, we're done with gym. We're done with physical education. Our gym class is now martial arts. And so we had martial arts for gym for the rest of the time that I was there. And one of the things he used to be like, you guys are studying to be revolutionaries. Well, if you can't defend the truth, you can't. If you're going to speak the truth, you got to defend the truth. You got to be able to. And so that was it, and he would just, just talk about and things from, hey, even he was like, even when they were marching in Selma and things like that for civil rights, they knew how to block. They were learning how to block and protect their vitals and things like that. He's like, I'm not advocating for that. Block and then counter punch, that kind of thing. But that was kind of one of the songs, and a friend of mine just reminded me of a song that we used to sing. We had this freedom choir, and we were always singing songs. It was like, so the song went something like, it was talking to people who were uncomfortable. You're talking about young. We were like kids, like 3rd, 4th grade. But we understood the concept of there's certain black folks who were uncomfortable with the struggle, and it was always never the majority. The majority weren't with King. The majority weren't with. Now it's like, the majority were with King, and just a few radicals were with Malcolm. Right. They had abandoned King too. They were like, "What you doing out there? Like, you better stop."
You causing trouble.
Exactly, you causing trouble. So even as 2nd and 3rd and 4th graders, we understood the concept that there were plenty of black folks who would not necessarily engage in the struggle, engage in this fight, and they would be on the sidelines. And the song went something like, I went to the meeting last night, and my feeling just wasn't right. You see, I thought that stuff about blackness just wasn't for me. But when I found out it was for me, I joined in the unity. And now I'm down for the struggle for liberation. Those are the
You songs. Remember that from elementary school?
It's in his heart.
Yeah, man.
You know what? I gotta break this to you just early because it's moving me. It's moving me. Like, one thing about doing these interviews and hearing about people's like educational origin story, right? Is that's where you find them. You know what I mean? Like, that's where you came from. Like, it's like that seed, you grow from that. Like, that's wild. You're singing that song at 9 and 8, and your entire life is kind of like focused, from that point.
And even if you get away, because I didn't know I was going to be a teacher. Like, I didn't know that until after I graduated, college. It was never my mind.
Wait. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
All right,
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. In the school, in elementary school, did they have like extracurricular activities? Y'all got like a militant black football team?
Our
extracurricular black football team.
It's like a panther on the side.
Black power. Yeah, they got it.
Where's your glove?
On the side, like Beyonce in the Super Bowl and stuff.
No, our whole extracurricular was really geared around the martial arts and the thing. So we had Freedom Choir, which you had to join. It was just whether you could sing or not, whether you got a prominent part or not. You were a Freedom Choir.
You could talk.
But as far as like the traveling Freedom Choir, then that was limited.
Right.
And then we had Freedom Force, which was a demonstration group out of the martial arts. So our martial arts was called Vita Sa'ana, which means like a warrior's art of war kind of thing. Swahili, we use Swahili terms and things like that, and we would travel around the city and East Coast and do tournaments and do demonstrations and things like that. And so that was our extracurricular.
So you did martial arts and
that was it.
Those types of things. That's wild.
Yeah, that was it. So we'd rumble. Extracurricular was rumbling.
And so this went up to what grade?
This went to 6th grade.
Any teachers in particular that you remember?
Yeah, I remember.
You want to shout out?
Yeah, I remember. Just and again, because it was small and sometimes we had like I
like to shout out Miss Primish with the flat ass. She's from Philadelphia too. She's white lady. She had the flattest ass I've ever seen. It was like a bent back and the whole thing. She taught me how to spell together. So,
you remember that?
I never forget it.
To get her. You remember that?
You remember that?
Every time I spell, I'm like, oh, that flat ass.
I feel like this shows y'all life, like your whole lifetime. That's the only thing you remember is how to spell together.
No, I mean I can spell some other words, but that was the one. It just was so clear to me. I was like, to get her. Why don't they call it to get her?
Why don't they just say that?
Why don't they say that? You're not trying to get her. Just to get her together. Yeah. No, I remember the whole community. Obviously, Baba Changa was our martial arts teacher, but he also taught political science. He also taught
Baba Changa.
He was an art teacher.
Okay.
But the art class I remember the most was he drew a picture of the continent of Africa. And he told everybody, okay, draw that. And he said, if you love it, you'll be able to draw it. And I can't draw a lick. And I'm just like, I love it. Look. So one of my friends, I was like, I'm tracing this bad boy. I was showing that I love it. I'm down.
That's South America. That ain't Africa.
But like, what did you just draw? But our principal, Mama Fasaha, she's, we still have Kwanzaa at our house.
Wow.
This is like I think last year was like the 39th, 40th year or something. I don't remember. It's like going on forever. And so we still all convene and have our reminiscent pieces. One of my teachers, Mama Kamara and Baba Jahudi and Mama Renee, who at some point we were colleagues. Like she was teaching she was still teaching when I began my career,
right?
Which was such a really amazing dynamic and really cool. And I would just always just gush. And then when I became a principal at charter school, she was also at a charter school at an Afrocentric charter school that was K-8, and I was 7 to 12. So we would sometimes get her rising 9th graders. And they're like, yeah, I was at Mama Renee's school. And I'm like, do you know what that means? That was my teacher, so
it's real connection.
Like all of that.
And that's got to help make inroads with the kids you teach when you work with them.
And it just always just made me feel really just good and proud. But they're all still in, and thank God for Facebook. Is like now really easy to stay in touch with.
You remember when we just you just didn't see nobody?
Yeah, it was just, my mom would like write a letter. Someone called. I saw someone in the supermarket and they said hi. I'm like, that's cool. Write them a letter. I'm like, what did you say? I said hi. You know what he meant? No, write them a letter. And so it was just like, I don't feel like writing a letter, but. Now it's like Facebook, like, hey, how's everything? So it's just been a really great tool to stay in touch with folks.
I meant to ask, with your name and I'm hearing the different names from the school. Was it an Islamic based school or?
No, it was totally Pan-African. Remember, there were a lot of Muslims who attended.
Were you Muslim?
Yeah, I was raised.
And that's your birth name?
Born and raised Muslim. Yeah.
Okay.
So there were a lot of Muslims who attended there, but it wasn't a religiously based school. It was like whoever's Pan-African in thought and deed can come. Muslim, Christian, a lot of there were folks who were Yoruba.
It's a lot of that. Like African traditionalism.
Oh, okay.
Like the naughty heads. Shout out to the dirt eaters and the smarty art niggas.
Okay.
Yeah. What was I gonna ask about that? Okay, so that's the elementary.
So after there, no art.
No art.
Yeah. So that goes up to what grade though?
That was to 6th grade.
6th grade. And then where you go?
So middle school, interestingly enough, we moved out of the country. We moved to Iran.
Okay, who were you living with? What's going on? What's happening?
So my mother, my siblings, stepfather, called Baba. In our tradition, it's like not step. This is like your father, your mother, and we come to a village concept. So we moved to Iran along with my mom's best friend, who we call Mama Shakur. She also was there. She was there already, and my mother had met a whole lot of Iranians after the Iranian Revolution, or during, not even after, before, during, and they would always invite her. We actually had a third floor to our home.
How do you just meet somebody during the Iranian Revolution? Like I
don't know where they actually met them, but like at different masjids, or
cool.
So you have a masjid and you meet and this and that, and my father was, they were just, it was almost like an international house. Like our families were.
Y'all were living there when that happened, or
well, we were living here, but we met folks at
because that was like 60.
That was 79. I think was the actual revolution. We were. I think my mom went over first, and she was there with like her best friend, and that was like maybe 81. And by 82, I think I was there. So.
Do you remember it?
Yeah, I was 10, 11.
What's that's just like whatever.
Yeah.
Like, what's the mood like? I can only imagine. It's
a
revolution going on.
Well, it had just happened, but it was interesting. Like, when I think back on it, and at the time, I was so young, I didn't think like, oh wow, like, but now, like, wow, it was in a little while after the revolution, Iraq invaded Iran.
Right.
Like CIA really like go to them and supported them. To do that, and so things were rationed, and so to make sure that the wealthy didn't like buy up everything, things, and certain things were scarce. So I remember Iraqi warplanes would fly over and they would shut out the lights of the city, and they said that was so that they
couldn't see
couldn't see targets as well, and so then what you would see is the anti-aircraft ammunition going up. I don't know what they're called, but like whatever those rockets are out of the artillery would go up, and it was just like a light show. And I remember all the old heads would say, "Go in the house, go in the house." But none of the kids like, "We're not going in the house. We're going to watch this," And so just seeing all of that, and you would see just like these like lights, up in the sky and stuff. So that was like, it was a country at war. And we were there, and so it was beyond interesting. It was just seeing people. It was interesting seeing people rally around causes and making sacrifices about things that they believed in, but not having it. And obviously you have some folks who would say, "Oh, let Iraq invade," But for the most part, people are like, "No, you don't invade us." And having friends whose brothers died at the war front and family members died and maimed at the war front was, I'll never forget it. It was that kind of atmosphere. Yet you could see people how they banded together in this time of crisis and
you get the bright
showing love for each other as well. So it was both tragedy as well as you see all this compassion and empathy towards each other and it was unifying, So, my best friend, his brother, he lost his older brother, So it was very close to home.
It's unimaginable.
So,
it's unimaginable. All right, so
they had this chant. They were like, "My brother, America." That means like death to America. And they were like, "But not you."
They were cool about it.
Yeah, they were like, not you, because everyone would chant it all the time. Like you'd hear it all the time.
Death to America.
Any speech anywhere, not you, Sharif. You're down. You're good. But they would always talk about like it's not the people. We love the American people, but we can't stand your government. And I'm like, it's a whole lot of countries that kind of feel that way.
Yeah, my family in Kenya. It's similar. Similar feeling amongst many of them.
Yeah.
So if you're living in Iran, it's you're 10, you're in middle school age. Where do the revolution is taking place.
Yeah.
Where do you go? Like,
so I went to.
Is there middle school?
Yeah, I went to middle school. The very first school I went to was a school for Iraqi refugees. So even though Iraq invaded Iran, there were a lot of Iraqis who were also trying to leave Iraq and move to Iran.
Right.
So I went to school with them initially just because they spoke Arabic. And my Arabic was way better than my Farsi, which is what Iranians spoke, because as Muslims, we were learning Arabic even while we were here. So I went to school initially with Iraqi students, refugees, and then after that, I went to an Iranian public school, like a regular old public school for Iranian kids. After my Farsi was better.
And how was that?
It was good. It's all boys school. All the boys go to school together, and all the girls. And it was so crowded. You had morning or afternoon shifts. So you'd go. I think you had to. I don't remember, to be there by 6:30, and you get out at 11:30. And the next shift was from 12 to 5. Something like that. So every 2 weeks you would switch.
Now, how do you think, like as an educator now, like looking back?
Yeah.
How do you think that? Why do you think things moved in that way?
Well, I think part of it was just the limited space and not having enough money to build more schools, and so it's just like, hey, we're going to use this school, and we can't fit everybody in at the same time, and so we're going to go in shifts. You go in the morning, and you do that for 2 weeks, then you switch and go in the afternoon. I was just like, wow, they kept up with all of that, and students being organized and families being organized. Like, I don't recall anyone ever going to the wrong shift, So yeah. I think it was just such a part of the norm that no one even thought about it differently. So,
So that's middle school. Were you like getting involved in anything, or what was your
just soccer? In martial arts, they were really big in taekwondo and judo. So, some friends, we would go to the dojo there and do that. But soccer was king. Like, most of the time was spent playing soccer.
The world.
Yeah. And which I loved. I learned it, enjoyed it thoroughly, and most of the time was doing that.
Okay.
And still no art.
No art. But I was wondering about like in your school now.
So that's a big part of
that's
it. Even though I didn't have it, I believe in the whole child. I believe in students, learning the art. So we've always, even with all the pressures, and I know, schools are trying to figure out like, all right, these kids are, reading is like, it's like now cliche. Reading is fundamental. Like it is the base of liberation,
right?
Like what is it? Frederick Douglass said, teaching a person how to read makes them unfit to be a slave. Like it is like the, like if there are no silver bullets,
you can pretty much
but if
figure
it is a silver bullet,
you
it's learn how to read, right?
Yes.
And read well. And so I think, but again, there has to be things have to also be measured to make balance and look at whole child. Like what is the full scope of revolutionary thought and process. You can't just have reading classes all day long, but that's what a lot of schools did and squeezed out other aspects that make a child, a student whole. So we've never done that. We've always had, the art teacher. We've always had a music teacher. At my old school, we even had a theater teacher. She was a dance teacher in theater. But now, we have the arts. We have music. We have computer science. We have health and PE.
I just think options are really
and I think if a child is going to be a whole, if we're approaching a whole child aspect, then they have so many talents, and we have to make sure that we're trying our best to
expose them and
introduce them, even if they don't feel like they have the talent.
Right. Who knows? I should have had an opportunity to give it a shot. That's stuff like a kid should have.
Right. I hope you're going to help me with this mentoring thing, since you're doing all this talk about education.
Yeah, he sounds committed to me.
I mean, I am. I got you.
Come on, class clowns. We also have like a mentoring thing. I'm trying to do. We teach kids comedy after school.
Wow.
Mars came.
Delivery and all of that, writing,
it's so much.
Yeah,
it's so much.
I can only imagine. I had a friend. It's so interesting. Like when I met you, I told you might not remember. I was like, I had one of my best friends who was also a teacher. He was a comedian. His name is Aaron Stark here in Philadelphia, and so he was he was and at first I was just like, how you're a teacher and you're like, how is that even possible? Like,
it's actually
like I was just trying to wrap my.
It feels weird though.
It's very common.
Yeah, and it was just it was so interesting. Then I was like, but we just had lunch together not too long ago. We started together 20-something years ago. Wow. He's now also a principal at a charter school. He doesn't do comedy anymore.
It's a tough road.
He just said he was timid. I don't care about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough road.
I don't know. I think his stage name was Lucky or Lucky. I don't remember. But there were a couple of like comedians in Philly that he knew and stuff like that.
He gave up. We don't care about him.
Yeah. He's out of the fraternity. Stark, you messed up, Stark.
That's the only way you lose. You quit.
Yeah. Otherwise, it don't matter if you're not funny. It don't matter if you don't get good gigs. As long as you don't quit, you are in
the race.
Mm-hmm. Oh man,
he still does private shows. I'm sure he keeps me laughing, keeps others laughing. But I don't know how long ago he stopped like on stage performance, but
I mean, as a principal, I can't imagine.
Yeah,
like it's hard doing it from this angle, but from that, you got extra stuff to do. You got a family, you got whatever. It seems impossible to me. Yeah. But okay, so we got through middle school, we got through elementary school, high school. We
moved back. Most of us moved back. Some of my siblings were still in Iran and graduated from college in Iran. Went to seminary school. My brother married a black Iranian.
Oh, really?
And so
they have those. That's
a
thing.
Well, black folks everywhere, brother.
We are everywhere.
That's right.
And that's the problem.
Oh my goodness. So I go from Overbrook. So just in West Philly, famous for Will Chamberlain, Will Smith, Schoolie D. Infamous too for some other folks.
Because we're looking for some not so celebrities later.
Yeah.
For my Snapchat, I just think
he swears he's gonna walk into somebody from Philadelphia, like somebody with Rocky's like makeup man.
It's gonna happen.
I'm sure it's not really famous. I'm sure kind of famous.
What's going on today? Is there something interesting going on today?
Bruh, we are on a podcast. What is this? Stay focused. Stay focused. Let's try to get suggestions.
Y'all got sandwiches now. I wish I got a sandwich.
Man.
Overbrook. I came back for Overbrook for 10th grade, and I think that's when I really started just seeing the chasm between good education and poor education. Didn't notice it at the time, but when we got back, they're like, we can't read this transcript. Like, what grade are you in? What what are you doing? And so they gave us a placement test, and they wanted to skip me to the 11th grade. I had only finished 8th grade.
Okay.
Based off a reading and math test.
Right. Exactly.
And my mom, I remember her saying, like, you're not going to be in 11th grade with those girls. Like, that was her thing. Hey, you're too young to be in there with those. And I'm like, Mom, 11th grade, that means 2 years and I'm out. And she's like, And
then what you going to do? It's in there 13 and out in the streets.
Go to college.
But and then later on, finding out so many of the kids who went to elementary school with us skipped grades, graduated early. Like it was almost a norm to graduate high school by you were 15, 16.
From the Freedom School.
From the Freedom School, and so she let me skip 1 grade. So I started off 10th grade at Overbrook, and and from there we just start. I didn't even then I didn't know. It wasn't until I became a teacher and started connecting the dots. Like I had so many friends who were great athletes. We're all in football or track together and things, but they weren't ready to go to college. And now knowing like their transcripts were jacked up. They were rostered in shop classes all day. Not taking the prerequisite courses for college, and they could have all been successful in college. It's just like how often. So within Overbrook, you had different programs. You had an art program, music. It was an art music magnet program, I think. You had a scholars academy. That's what I was placed in. You had a motivational group. And then you had everybody else, and they were
gym pop,
wood shop. Mechanic. The shop class, cooking classes, and they would just take just the bare minimum of content, where instead of looking at like, all right, how do we make sure all of our students are really super well educated and have if you want to be a chef, like you need to take these particular courses,
but if you're not,
but not like all day long, and not but it wasn't until later, when I was in high school and I wanted to cut a class, I would go down to the shop class. And why does the shop teacher let me hang out in this class? That's
now you think about it.
I was just like, why? I just thought he was super cool, but I was just like, that was very irresponsible.
He was the worst teacher in the school.
Why did you, and I would cut class and just hang out, and I didn't want to be a mechanic, but I thought it was fascinating to watch them, we changed the engine. That's really cool.
That's the one thing you take from class. Yeah, change the engine. And you're like, that's what this is all about.
So change the engine. So interesting, man. Interesting. And the thing about when you talk about relationships and teachers, you ask me who do I remember from my elementary school. I remember all of them. I remember very few from high school. Even though it was years later, that was, you don't
feel like they made as much of an impact.
Yeah, I don't remember most of them. I remember a couple, a handful, maybe 5 that I remember from my high school. Out of all of 3 years, all those courses, I probably remember about 5. And some of them I remember because of my extreme dislike for them.
Right.
Were you a class clown?
I was not a clown. I was always pretty serious, super serious. And,
you seem serious.
Yeah, I was not a clown. I enjoy fun. I enjoy laughing, but I wasn't just clowning in class. No, but I had friends who were really funny. They would crack up. I thought they were hilarious, but I wasn't the one to do antics. I was pretty reserved and shy for certain aspects. I remember one class I cut just because the teacher said, "All right, everyone's doing presentations about some kind of talent. You're doing research, and then you're doing a demonstration." Well, it was a demonstration, and I was just like, and so my friend,
I don't want to do that.
My friend was like a DJ, and so he comes in and he's doing scratching and all that stuff, right?
It's a tough act to follow.
Yeah. Well, you could have gone anywhere. Other people were like, "Oh, I'm this," and that's exactly where I hung out, for a month. And I'm sitting there they never called my house.
What kind of grades? That's what I'm trying to understand. What kind of grades were you getting?
I was still getting good grades. I ended up getting a full scholarship to a state school. I was still getting good grades. I would take the test.
Right.
I would do those kind of assignments. But I'm not doing a presentation for what, And of course, my friend was like, "You should do martial arts." I'm like, "Nah," because then I'm gonna have to jack somebody out. Because I'm like, "Oh, you think you can know how to fight?" I ain't got time for all that nonsense. I was like, and I don't feel like standing up in front of everybody and doing a presentation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But now, as a teacher, I was there are different people who have different strengths and forcing. And you want to hey, public speaking is important. But that wasn't going to be the avenue to force me to do it.
Do any public speaking in their life?
But eventually, I never thought I would. But eventually I needed to, but it was teaching that kind of, it was just the job where I'm just this is constant public speaking. You have 30 kids looking at you you better tell us something, and so that was just a different dynamic, but it just always reinforced to me as I became a teacher, oh, there are different ways to get things, and it's not always, sometimes it's also, they have that strength builders or strength, something, there's a book talks about building on student strengths or people's strengths, but it's usually the thing what's your deficit? All right, we're going to spend all our energy on your deficit instead of trying to make what you show potential in and make that amazing and blow it up, and it's be okay, but all of our time and lens and focus is always on, and it doesn't mean that we shouldn't grow and push ourselves and push students who they may be not good confidence or they haven't been taught it, but having that, again, everything's about balance, finding what the balance is. If she would have told me to write a paper on something, I would have written the best paper and handed it into her. But the fact that she said, "And you got to stand up and present just this way," I was like, "All right, deuces. I'll see you when this course is over." And I remember seeing her in the hallway, and she just walking by it was no big deal. And one of my friends the
fact you didn't come to class.
Yeah. And I'm like, why didn't you confront me El-Mekki? You cut my class for
a month.
How about 2 days?
Right. And I thought you dropped out.
I see you in school, and I'm in school. I saw you.
It's insulting.
Right.
Yeah, that's insulting.
But why didn't she ever engage me? It's stuff like that I now as an educator that I'm just
you fail to do your job to some degree.
Yeah.
She not you, but
Thank God it kind of turned out okay. But what if I didn't? What if that lack of engagement carried over to a bunch of other classes, which for the most part it did, but I was just self-motivated to And the big thing is I wanted to play football. I knew in order to be eligible,
you gotta do that.
I had to do certain things, but it wasn't anything, around like, oh, this is. I felt like the education I was getting from reading what I wanted to read outside of school was just as good. Like, what was my world history teacher really going to teach me? Like, in honesty, like the education that I had, the books that were in my house, the things that I read, the conversations that I had with my parents and their friends. What in the world was Miss Rappaport actually going to teach me?
Yeah.
Shots fired.
Right. And Miss Rappaport.
All right.
And she didn't prove me wrong.
I'm gonna test your empathy here. I'll test your empathy. Because as educators, we get to look back and remember school. Most people just look back at school and they like forget that and they don't have to think about it no more. But we get to like really do it both ways. So that teacher who let you skip for a month, and you kind of look at it like, what was she doing? Whatever. What do you think she was going through? Or what do you think might have caused that type of thing? Like, as an educator looking back, like, what was the class size? Like, what was your population like?
Yeah, so I would say, one, she had the scholars class, so she had the kids who were the most, accomplished kids already. So it wasn't a case
you have no love for this.
Nah. I think what it was.
She had the scholars class.
Yes. And I don't know what her full schedule was. I don't know if she had this class or that class, but that particular class, that was the layup. It's supposed to be the accelerated. Yeah, this is like, hey, just stand and deliver, right? Like this. So this is what I said. My empathy would be around the kids who were in her class.
Right.
Like, what did they? If ours was the scholars, and I don't know her full roster, but if she had the other courses, the non-accelerated courses, what did those classes look like? And I would wonder why she got into the game in the very beginning. Like, why is she here? Like, you choose to be here. We volunteer. We sign up. The kids don't necessarily sign up to go to their neighborhood school. It's the law. The parents make them. They're like, I got to do something. Some are motivated for other reasons, but some are like, this is just what happens. There are adults who sign up to do that. So, like, what happened? And yeah, there may be other circumstances, but at the end of the day, when we say no excuses, it starts with the adults. And we have to deliver on behalf of kids, no matter what else is going on. And so, like,
he's a tough principal to work for.
But I believe in high support too. Like, so I don't know how the principal was supporting her. You remember
your principal?
I remember the vice principal more than I remember the principal. The principal is like a vague memory of her. The vice principal. And he was all about just vice, that was his thing. And and it was interesting because, again, one of those where worlds collide. When I became a principal, he was still he was a principal by then, and so then I just remember, I'm like, dang, I remember this joker when he was at 8. And now we call him assistant principals. Back then, straight vice principal. Like, who's doing the vice up in here? I'm gonna get you. I remember he threatened to cancel our graduation, man. 'Cause we were in graduation practice, cutting up. We will.
Oh, y'all was playing.
Right. We didn't like the song that they had. Some of the kids like, this is the song we're gonna sing. And, a lot of our friends were like, we don't like that song. Right. That. Let's do. So we just started chanting. He comes out of his office. I will cancel. Now looking back, like, you weren't. Our parents were. You imagine over high school class of 80. Yeah. But at that time, we were like, maybe is that a thing? Do they do?
Y'all shut up though.
Yeah. Shut up.
That's the vice.
Stop that. There was a couple folks who did it, but the unity had died.
He had driven a stake into the heart of the movement.
There were enough folks who were like, it could happen,
so man, I ain't losing my graduation over y'all. Right. My mama killed me.
That's exactly what the sentiment was. I was like, man, y'all jokers, y'all scared.
All right, so where'd you? This is interesting. You've been all over the place as far as education. I have education in a freedom school from Iran, Overbrook, just a regular public school. Not regular, Overbrook. Like, Moment of Silence was the bomb. In other aspects, like some of. What were the great things?
Great things were the students. You had some faculty there also who were just committed to success of black kids. Yeah, plenty of shout out. Mr. Jones, who was a PE teacher, advisor, football coach, and track coach. Mr. Rosenfeld.
All right, Rosenfeld.
This right now probably 75-year-old Jewish man who was a phenom as a coach. Overbrook High School during his tenure, and before that, he also picked up a legacy from other coaches, Mr. Harding, Mr. Jones, track. And I mean, Overbrook High School won more track championships in the history of the city, and so he picked up that legacy and continued it. I have a T-shirt where it just has the years that we won the track or cross country championships. Right. The T-shirt is full, and all it has are just years. Yeah. So it was that kind of legacy for track at Overbrook. It was just, like a really big deal. And so, that was like my fondest memories was winning the city championship. Not winning it, but more importantly, the work that had to be done in order to get there. The journey and the camaraderie and the pain and the tears and my best friend always throwing up right after the 400 and the coach is like, stop throwing up on the track, they go
just go to the side,
and just
not are you okay,
not are you okay, stop throwing up on the track, Greg,
tired of this shit
but
step over there.
But like those friends and I think my friendships is what like really made Overbrook and school on the hill, and also just the legacy of it. Like now people always like, I was at the castle of the hill, on top of the hill, and Overbrook OHS, and like alum people. Yeah, there's a lot of pride in for the school and being there. But they were very and sometimes you'll hear teachers and names and stuff. But that's not most of what people talk about. Although there were some standouts who really, stood up and worked hard, both publicly and privately, on behalf of these black kids who attended there. And the one white kid who went there, Hassan, my neighbor.
Right,
Muslim white kid who went to Overbrook. He's
white kid named Hassan.
Yeah, exactly. It could happen.
Right, for sure.
It's a real thing.
Yeah, it's the real deal.
You gotta acknowledge all peoples.
So, but all of those guys, we're still in touch, and I don't get to hang out with them. A lot of them still are hang out, and I don't get to as much just from my schedule as a principal. It's just a lot different than what I thought, but they'll still let me know we're all together, we're watching the game, your spot is empty, oh well, that kind of thing.
I gotta go to sleep,
exactly. Like, do you know what it's like if you're tired trying to teach middle school, so
I can imagine. They're like, we're gonna watch this game without you, bro. So all right, so we're getting near the end. I'm curious about, like, okay, you just experienced Overbrook, you're in Philadelphia, you said you were doing well. Which college did you choose to attend?
Yeah, I only chose one, and they were the one that sent the most money. I had not heard of them before my senior year, and I actually got a letter. I didn't, and it was Indiana University of Pennsylvania, IUP.
Right.
It's close to Pittsburgh, about 45 minutes.
They were good in basketball a little while ago, right?
Yeah, and football. They're D2.
But they put somebody in the league, I think.
Yeah, they put a couple people in the league. Excuse me. They were in the basketball at the national championships maybe last year or 2 years ago. Football, they're always in the playoffs, usually winning their side of the state. So they're a good athletic program. And I went there thinking I was going to major in veterinary sciences.
Okay.
And so I get there and they tell me.
I hear one animal in your entire origin story.
Right. Oh yeah, I can. I love most of my friends thought I loved like I memorized like so many thousands and thousands of
you were that kid.
Useless facts about animals that no one had ever heard.
Tensile strength of a spider's web.
Exactly. that was me. And I had these cards. There was cards with like picture of the animal, and behind it just all the fat, little tiny print, and I would just read, I would read that stuff, man, and memorize it. So people thought, you want to be a veterinarian. So two things. One, I loved animals, but mostly exotic animals. I did not want to sit there and neuter and spay cats and dogs all day. So I knew,
because that's what a veterinarian.
Yeah,
right,
that's what
the actual
in this region, this area.
Yeah,
unless you're at the zoo or somewhere really where you can kind of interact with a dolphin, that would have been far more interesting. But I was like, I actually don't I love animals, but that wasn't the exact thing. I just like animals, and I like facts. I like to read, So there were a lot more things about it. But everyone told me as a kid, you want to. I remember when I was 4, I cried when my mom told me Dr. Dolittle was fake. I had this book.
There was no way you were going to be able to talk to animals.
Yeah, I was just like, what? This is not a thing. I remember crying when she, when she told me that. I had this book with the actual color pictures of some movie that they had, and so I thought this was. I'm like, look, they're like, nah.
Clearly talking.
Yeah.
Clearly, Eddie Murphy can talk.
Exactly. So
before that, Eddie Murphy, that was the old one.
Before it was this old white guy with a top hat, So but again, my counselor at Overbrook never told me that, and I should have did my own research, but I was 16. I just was excited. I got a full ride, and all right, maybe a conversation about what they actually have at the college you're going to would have been a little helpful. So the counselor at the school told me that when I told her. So then I was just like, all right, I want to get out of here in 4 years. What do you have?
So that's how you pick a major.
So that's pretty much how I picked. I was looking down the list, and I was like, okay. And I always knew that I wanted to do something about social justice issues. Didn't know what. I knew I was just that was going to be something. So I thought that I would end up being a lawyer and doing a bunch of pro bono work, or for some firm that looked out for the little people that were putting up the fight, or maybe even just do something, get internal affairs and go after rogue cops. That's yeah. So I knew. So I was like, all right, I'll do this, then I'll go to law school. That's what the plan was. Then after I graduated, and I was just dipping and dabbing, I was like, all right, before I go to law school, maybe in a year or so, I'll just do different things. So I was doing a little bit of social work. I was doing mail courier, just delivering, just for the freedom, just to kind of see what was happening. I ended up, someone told me about the Youth Study Center. They're like, hey, this is basically a place for kids waiting to be adjudicated. So they're accused of a crime. They go here till a judge says, hey, you're going to go back home, or you're going to go to some, a jail, And so I was there, and I was like, I can't work here. This is so depressing, and they're 12 years old. They're in jail, and you need good people there too. But it was just, I didn't have the composition to do it, and they need good people, because the kids are there. It's in and out all the time. So you need a special group of people to work there. But it wasn't me. Right when I was sitting there, good Lord, how did I end up here? From Nithamu Sasa, that was the name of our elementary school. My best friend.
Say it one more time.
Nithamu Sasa.
Nithamu
Sasa.
Sasa. Nithamu Sasa.
Yep.
Thanks, bro.
All right.
And so my best friend there, Sakini Mulcher, that was the DJ who we also went to Overbrook together. He's doing the DJ for the spinning wheels. His mother called and said, hey, there's an organization looking to recruit black men to be teachers. And the first thought of my mind was like, Mama Cynthia, I don't want to be a teacher. What in the world? Why do you think I would want to be a teacher? I'm glad you're doing that, but and she's like, no, you should really look into it. I think you'd be good at it. So here it is, this, a parent of my friend, part of the village, but saw something that thought you would enjoy doing this. Right. And because I certainly didn't see it for myself. And keep in mind, my mother was a teacher. So I was living with the teacher, right, and I didn't see, my mom's a teacher. That's cool, but that's not me, Right. But I looked into it. So the group was called Concerned Black Men. on the Philly ranch, and they had a partnership with the school district of Philadelphia to recruit black men. I wish they did more than recruit, but it was kind of recruit, get you help you navigate, get you enrolled in Cheney University, and then it was kind of hands off. I wish it was more of like a PD and stuff like that. But I'm still grateful that they were doing it. And so once I got into it, I loved it. I was like, I don't know why she told me about it or why she thought I would do it, but I love it. To this day, I'm grateful to Mama Cynthia Moultrie for thinking about me when she heard about that program. Yeah. And that was 23 years ago. So, yeah.
Shout out to Mama Cynthia.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Shout out. So, as a kid, one question I try to ask everyone is, how did you see yourself influencing the world as a kid?
As a kid, it's crazy. Like, I didn't know for sure. I didn't know whether I was going to do, like, teach martial arts and just, like, train revolutionaries. I mean, and the stuff that, like, these are former Black Liberation Army folks, former Black Panthers, like, just activists. I mean, so the stuff that in my head, I'm like, yeah, like that, I remember, brother, and they, people telling me about, like, at a protest, the cops used to be on horses in this area, like, and a lot of areas, but, like, that was a thing, right? Like, this is, like, it's intimidating. You marching and protesting, and it's,
giant, right?
Yeah, there's a giant, and then this guy on top of it swinging a baton and meeting one of the brothers who studied martial arts and actually doing a flying side kick and kicking this cop off this horse. So as a kid, I thought, I'm like, all right, is that my role? Like, to defend the community?
I'll be the one to kick the guys off horses.
Like, jacking, cop, like, assaulting our people as they're standing up, and like, is that my role? Or is my role, me and my friend Ayana, we used to talk about, like, one day, what we should do? We should go in the zoo and just release all those animals locked in there. So we're literally talking about how we
terrorists,
or horse kick. Exactly. Like that. That's what, we're like 7 to 8 sitting, like, all right, yeah, and then we'd have to do, and then we get the elephant, and and we do that first. And this is as kids, this is what we're talking about, like, like that injustice or this injustice or police brutality or that, what I mean? That's
right or wrong.
Your intentions were right.
That's all we were really. A lot of us were thinking about, just how do we tip the scales the scales back to make it more just. So I didn't. So I didn't know exactly, but I thought it would be something around social justice. But I had no clue exactly how to get into that space. In the blog I was telling you about, like, that's actually what it was. Like, I knew I wanted to be a revolutionary, but I wasn't quite sure what it was. Was it environmental justice? Was it animal rights, human rights? Police brutality? What exactly was it? And I had no idea. And everybody was telling me, like, you're going to be a veterinarian, so which I also thought, like, okay, I sure am, because I like animals,
I like animals. I'm smart, I can do that. So here we are now.
And now I can't even imagine sitting there, like, neutering cats all day. Good Lord.
I'm so tired of all these cats.
Like, I can't, wow.
So I did. Shout out to veterinarians. Shout out.
When you didn't hear about animals, like in college, like my roommates will tell you, like they were. I'm so grateful to my college roommates, because my mom, I would have had pets. My mom is a city girl and wanted nothing to do with pets at all. Like, especially the pets that I wanted. After she got rid of our cats when we were, like, little kids, she's like, I don't want to see another animal. I don't want to see another animal hair in the cake that I baked. Nothing. I don't want to see anything. Right. So even I remember once for spring break at Nithamusasa, we had this garter snake for a class garter snake, and they're like, who's gonna take it home for the spring break? I was like, I will. So I had this snake in my bag. I didn't tell my mom, because I'm like, I just got to get it to my room. And we're on Lincoln Drive. It's this windy road that you can get from Germantown to West Philly. And you always show your little brother something, even though you got a big mouth. He says, Mom, Sharif has a snake. She made a U-turn on Lincoln Drive. And so if you're for those who are in Philly know like how crazy that is. But that's what she did when he said that she didn't even look back to verify. She's just in her head like, that's true. I know he got it. Like, I gotta get back. She drove me back to the school, and here I am in tears. I had to take the snake back to school. So when I got into college, my first refund check, I went and bought an alligator, a bunch of snakes. I wasted my refund check.
Bought an alligator.
Like most.
It was actually a caiman, but yeah, I bought a caiman.
But whatever.
And some rat snakes.
That's hilarious. Your first act as an adult. Like.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. And now I'm just like, what in the world was I thinking?
6 rat snakes.
Yeah. Can I get a corn snake? I want that albino rat snake and that black rat snake. Money. Yeah. Yep. I couldn't wait to cash it just to go.
Just to ball out.
And so my college roommates, you know, and that's the thing. They like you don't buy clothes, you don't buy this, you don't buy that. We gotta live with a daggone alligator, you know. So I'm grateful to them. Mark Kerr, Mike Scott, Hakeem Cooper, Sean Horn, Pookie. Like they were good brothers. They understood me.
You made those names up. Pookie.
Pookie is like a legend.
So as we stand here now, you're grown, whatever. You're an adult.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
How do you see yourself influencing the world?
I don't know about influencing the world, but I'm hoping that I'm helping students who will influence the world. You know, so I think I'm more just student centered. I used to, up until recently, I likened myself to a school rat. I just wanted to be in my school, dawn to dusk, tinkering, mentoring, helping, figuring out how do we make our school a better place for black and brown kids, mostly black kids. And it was up until recently where I started kind of looking more at a national landscape, more like trends across the country and getting more involved. And that's how we ended up meeting and things like that. And through different national fellowships is where it kind of was like, okay, you know what? It's not just Philly. Don't just think about Philly because all of this stuff is jacked up around this country, very similar, and we need to be unified in our efforts on behalf of black kids and community. So, but before then, I was just looking at like, all right, how do I make my school better for my students, kind of thing. But I'm glad that to have been able to kind of commit so much, time and stuff like that. Now I know what I know, but also I recognize the importance of getting with like-minded folks and building alliances and strategy and elevating our voice and amplifying it, which can only be done with others, so that's what I hope now. Yeah.
Well, brother, I appreciate you.
No, my pleasure. Hey, welcome to Philly. So glad y'all ready to make it. Hope the food was good. It was the conversation.
Well, I gotta eat it. That's why we gotta end this. So I can eat this sandwich. It's been sitting there.
Where's the cheesesteak at, man?
Oh yeah, we'll hook you up. We'll put you in the right direction.
I wasn't. Where did we go? Felipe's last night.
Hey, no cheesesteak slander.
All I can say is
Felipe. It was Phillips.
Okay.
Listen, when you
I wasn't feeling it. I think I shouldn't have got lettuce and tomatoes because it felt like all lettuce and tomatoes.
It was
in Philly. They'll tell you to go to like the places that are, I don't know what they call it, like just the official Philly shit. Like, don't go there. You got to go in the hood.
That's what you get.
Some
nice coronary disease.
We can go to South Side.
There it is.
South Side restaurant on 60th Street. That's where you get your cheesesteaks.
Shout out. They're gonna be the sponsor of this podcast right there. It's our first commercial right there.
Right.
All right, y'all. Class Clowns signing out. Peace.